Good evening, and welcome to this episode of Conversations with Coach, the Mindset and Confidence podcast, where I provide women, athletes, executives, entrepreneurs, founders, and you the confidence you need to reach your goals. I'm your host, certified and confidence coach, Christina Callaway. Yes, we are live. And yes, it is an hour later than we normally do conversations with Coach. Why is it this way? Because of technical difficulties. My guest tonight, she and I actually did the show at 7 o'clock by ourselves. And it wasn't until we ended that we realized that we were the only ones on the show. We were wondering how come there wasn't any interactions, but you know what? You got to just laugh and keep on moving with it because sometimes things just happen the way that they're supposed to happen. But I'm so glad that you stayed around and that you are joining us now because I believe that even mistakes are supposed to be, it happens the way that it's supposed to happen. So again, welcome to Conversations with Coach. I am excited about the topic that we are sharing with you this evening. Although it can be a weighted and heavy topic, it is still yet a necessary one for us to talk about. Almost 2 years ago to the exact month, our entire world was rocked with the pandemic. And during that time, we suffered loss. Some of us suffered loss in a different way than others. And what we are going to be sharing with you, the listening audience tonight, hopefully will help you to get through the different and various ways that we experience loss in our lives. The guest that I have joining us this evening is none other than Miss Kearia Berry. She is a mental health advocate. What would you do if you were moving along, and maybe this has happened to you? Everything, one day you wake up, life is going on, you're in the middle of the pandemic, and you literally get what feels like a kick in your gut. You get that infamous knock on your door, and it's from the sheriff deputy. One minute you're enjoying life with your life partner, and the two of you are raising your children together, and then the next minute the knock comes on the door that your partner has been murdered. How do you resume life after loss? Well, tonight, my guest, mental health advocate Kearia Berry, is going to be talking how she, through her faith in God, her love of music, and how a change in her nutritional program helped her to get back to living her life after suffering the tragic loss of her partner. I want you to put some love in the chat and help me to welcome Kearia Berry. Hi, Kearia.
Hi, Christina. Thank you for having me. Hi, everyone.
Thank you for joining me again. But this time we actually are live.
We are live.
We are live. You just got to laugh through it, right?
Yes, yes.
You do have to laugh through it. And we were talking earlier and sharing earlier that there are so many different ways in terms of in types of loss that we can experience and that we have experienced, especially in these last 2 years. Some have experienced the loss of a spouse, a partner, a child, a parent. Some have experienced loss through a divorce, eyesight, the loss of a body part, loss of their pet, loss of their hearing. Some people have experienced the loss of their job during the pandemic, which resulted in the loss of their home, the loss of money. And so when we think about loss in terms of those things that I mentioned, it brings with it a whole bunch of mental and physical emotions and what it does to our health when that happens. As comfortable as you are in terms of sharing your loss that I mentioned briefly in your introduction, talk with the audience about your personal story and your own mental and physical health, in terms of the life and after loss and how that affected you and your mental and physical health.
Yes, so of course, my loss happened on June the 14th of 2020, right? A few couple of months after everything shut down. I got the knock on my door from the coroner around 3 something in the morning. And I didn't even realize that it was the coroner at first. That my partner, the father of my 2 young children, they're 7 and 8. They were then 6 and 5, but that he was shot multiple times while he was serving as a security guard, and killed. And immediately it was shock. It was agonizing. I screamed so loud. My oldest son, he woke up. He came downstairs, and I had to tell him. And I believe my exact words were, "A villain shot and killed Daddy." And he just had silent tears started to come down his face. And I asked the coroner to drive with me to my partner's mom's house, and he did, and I had to relay that information to her because I wanted her to know before it came out in the news, which it did, and it was very public because it's the middle of a pandemic. He was a Marine, and he was shot multiple times. So yeah, that was my new reality on top of the pandemic. That was my new reality, and how I went forward with bouncing back after receiving that information was I was more focused on not the why of things, but how do I go about healing? How do I bounce back? How do I show up for myself and show up for my children? And what I did was I decided I was going to participate in my own healing, and I invested in my word, because I'm a firm believer in God, and he was so merciful and gracious during this whole time period, and I can just see his hand, just even working through all the trauma. So I invested in my word, my God, and I invested in therapy because I'm a firm believer in Jesus and therapy, and I also invested in a good community. I surrounded myself with people who had my best interests at heart and weren't trying to tell me how to, what to, when to, and how to grieve, and how to grieve well, and how to heal well. So that's really what I did. And in terms of my physical health, I was introduced last year, May of 2021. I was praying for health strategies so that I could develop better health strategy for me and my boys. And literally the day after I prayed that prayer, my cousin introduced me to a process called 40-Day Turn Up with Dr. Joseph Williams out of Atlanta. And he focused on mind, body, soul, and spirit, and healing it from a health disparities perspective, of lessening the health disparities of high blood pressure and high blood pressure and diabetes within our community, and I lost over 50 pounds that way and built my confidence back up and everything. So that's literally how I've been able to bounce back and move forward with life.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing your story, and I want to acknowledge and offer you my condolences, and
Thank
I
you.
can't even begin to imagine what that would have been like, receiving that knock on the door and then having to turn around and look into the face of my child and relay that information to my child, and then have to turn around and relay that information to the mother of my partner. There are just no words, and I honor the work that you have done for yourself and for your children. I know that you mentioned how you surrounded yourself, you kind of cocooned yourself in terms of therapy, in terms of groups, and your faith are all the things that you pretty much just put yourself into a cocoon of people and groups that help to nurse you back into where you could continue to move forward, and how important that was for you both mentally and physically. And I'm really excited that you mentioned the physical part of life after loss, because a lot of time the focus is on the mental part, because we know of the ebbing and the flowing of the depression that comes with it,
Yes.
the grieving process. Talk to the audience as it relates to the toll that the grieving process took on you physically.
Initially, physically, I was eating everything. I was emotionally eating. I was eating late because it was a healing, or at least I thought it was a healing. It was a coping mechanism for me. Yeah, I did not feel good when I looked in the mirror. I did not feel good. I did not have energy. I lacked energy. I was very fatigued all the time and lethargic, and I just did not have the energy to I was showing up and I was completely functional in my work life, but I wasn't showing up mentally, health wise for myself, and it affected my energy levels. Just being able to really sustain. Uh, yeah, it was rough. It was rough. It was very
Absolutely.
rough.
Yes, the emotional eating is definitely part of the grieving process for many people. I know for me, I am a stress non-eater. So when I was going through my grieving process, I did the opposite of you. I did not eat. And so that's when people, because like you, I presented well in terms of being able to do my job. I was functioning in that capacity. But because I was not eating, the weight was literally falling off of me. And I actually had a person, because I coach gymnastics, I actually had one of the parents to ask me if I had cancer. That's how much weight I was losing. And it had got to the point where my face was sunken in.
Thinking.
I was losing so much weight. And so, to your point of the physical health, it can be on either extreme of
The spectrum.
end of the spectrum as it relates to when you're grieving. I know previously that you and I had talked about how making sure that the people that are in your community that are helping you to go through this process, it's very critical in terms of what that looks like. Because some people are very well-meaning, and they think that when they're listening to a person such as yourself, who's 2 years now into that healing process, and they're sharing like you are, I did this, I did that, and I did the other. I did 1, 2, and 3. It can sound to the listening ear very linear.
Right.
We know that it's very much not like that. There are 10 steps to the grieving process, and they are not step 1 through 10.
Not at
You
all.
can be on step 1 today, step 9 tomorrow, and back down to step 2 the day after. So speak to the audience as it relates to how you personally went through, and how those surrounding you, how important it was, the community surrounding you understood about the process not being linear, and how you had to share with them how they could help with that.
Yeah, definitely. It's no cookie cutter process. I was just so focused on how do I heal well. And I was very intentional about making sure that whoever was in my ear was someone who was able to give me space and grace, and allowing me to heal well. And they were being resourceful to me in the ways that I knew I needed, in terms of having positive talk in my ear, not saying that you need to do this by a certain time, not putting time frames on my grieving process, because everybody is completely different and it's an up and down roller coaster. But you just have to be committed to your individual process, because it is very individualized process of healing, and healing well. That's important. Healing and healing well. And you grieve and grieve well, not self-medicating with things that's going to be detrimental to your mental and physical health, but just making sure you are very intentional about who you let in your ear, and what you let in your ear in terms of what you're listening to. So I was just really focused on participating in my process
That's
and not
absolutely
looking at what other people were doing.
absolutely correct. That is absolutely correct. And
Mm-hmm.
definitely making sure that they understand that it is your journey, and it is so often I hear people make a comment, well, that was X number of years ago, and they should be over that by now. That is one of
Mm-hmm.
the most devastating and worst things you could ever say to a person who has suffered loss in
Right.
life, because it matters not on the terms of a time frame. That is still the loss in their life, and no one can put a time on when they should be over it or past it. It didn't happen to that individual. It happened to the person that it happened to. Now, there are things in place to help that person continue to move. There was a quote that you shared with me that I want you to share with the audience, that you heard a football player who had lost, whose wife had passed, and share that with them.
Yeah, I can't remember the football player's name, but he said death happens in life, but it does not happen to life. And that really resonated with me, because you have to be reminded of the fact that, okay, in life you are going to experience death. It's inevitable. Everybody's going to experience in some level, in some type of way. Like you were talking about the different types of losses, but just remembering that life still goes on. There's still life after loss. Literally, no pun intended. It's life after loss, for real.
Absolutely. And I really like that in terms of, because you're right, death is inevitable. it is going to happen to all of us at some point. And putting it into that was a perfect way to put it into perspective in terms of death happens in life. But there is life after it happens. Because for those of us that are still here, in terms of honoring the memory of the people, the person or the people that we have lost in death, that would be the way that they would want us to. And in particular, in terms of like that list that I read off earlier, in terms of the person, whether it was death by suicide, which is very tragic, very hard for the individuals who don't understand it. You know, they thought they're feeling the guilt of, could I have done more? There is all of the what if I would have. And I've spoken about this previously as a person who contemplated their own suicide. I will tell you that for a person who is successful in death by suicide, there is not one thing that anyone that they have left behind could have done to change that. Those of us who think about ending life that way, our thought is we are in pain. We want the pain to stop, and we don't want to be a burden to those who love us. We don't want them to continue to always have to be our cheerleader and to wear our depression any longer. And that is a way that we are feeling that we can provide relief to ourselves and to our loved ones. So if anyone that is listening to this now or in the future, if you go back and you listen and you're listening to the replay, if you have lost a loved one through death by suicide and you are feeling that guilt and you want them back, let me help you. They want you to live your life honoring their memory and the memories that you shared with them, and to know that they don't blame you, they don't hold you responsible for anything, that was a decision that they, in their mind and in the sickness of the depression that they were in, that's what they felt that they needed to do to relieve everyone of their pain. So move forward with your life knowing that you could not have done anything to change their outcome. Speaking of being a strong individual and honoring the memory of your loved one and having to move forward with life after loss for your sons, speak to those who are now having to parent as single parents in life after loss. How have you been able to do that so wonderfully?
Phew, that's been a challenge. That's probably been the biggest challenge because their dad was so active with them. We raised them. We lived in the same household, and so we would switch off. When I would get home from work, he would go into work, and yeah, that's been quite difficult. But what I did was I took free parenting courses. I did even like a parenting course for like a few months called Strengthening Families program, where it was me and my two boys, and we learned different things about each other and how to build a stronger unit and how to bounce back. I will say too, I went in therapy. I was already in therapy prior to this happening as well. And but when this happened, I put my boys in therapy also. And it was a blessing to know that their therapist was, just like she said, they are very emotionally stable children. And she said that they are processing this well. She did say that in years to come, because they're only 7 and 8 now, but she said in years to come, they may, once they get older and they're able to understand a little bit better, they may need to, come back and be able to process some of that trauma and not having dad there. And so, yeah, but that's what I did. And granted, the everyday workday schedule, planning around not having that other parent in the home anymore, that's been a challenge, and it's still a challenge. But I'm just thankful for my community, because I have family and friends that have been so crucial in helping all three of us heal well.
Absolutely. In terms of, you're saying that they're 7 and 8, and it really 2 years is not a long time, and because their dad was so present in their lives. And I know when school activities are happening, or after school activities that they're involved in, and other children have their fathers present, how have you addressed when they say things, well, I miss dad, I really wish that he was here to be able to do this with me? Or maybe they don't say, but you can see in their countenance it changes. How do you address that with them?
I feel like since he was killed, I feel like their eyes shine differently.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we've had these conversations several times. And they my boys, like my youngest, he doesn't talk about him as much, but what I do know is he writes about him in these Dear Dad um um letters they make. He's in first grade, so they do a lot of structured writing, and he writes about him, and draws his face. And yeah, my oldest, they'll sporadically they'll say, I miss dad. And I'll be like, he's listening. His spirit is still very much so alive. He's just not here in physical form, but his spirit lives on through you. He's taught you a lot. They remember he was always telling them to pay attention to details. So they remember all his sayings. And so they hold that really dear to their hearts. So yeah, I always let them talk it out, and I'm there to listen as much as they're willing to share.
That's really good. That is really good. I know when I was going through my overcoming loss group experience, and one of the things that they offer to us in terms of when it comes times for holidays, birthdays, anniversaries, the really tough times, and those memories start flooding in, and the waves really of depression start crashing in. One of the things that they said is just to help to reframe, so that you don't dread those days coming in, but to reframe it and to honor it with a new memory, so
Mm-hmm.
that you are again living life after loss. And they also said to find something that you really enjoy doing, that you can, and that they enjoyed with you, but now you can focus your time and energy on developing it even more.
Yes.
What was it that you were able to really, or have been able to really focus on and really develop?
So my thing that I love to sing. I love music. And even my therapist, she recommended initially, we had a whole jam session in a therapy session where she was just playing songs and it was so crazy how it happened. She was playing songs that was already listening to, but it was songs that him and I both listened to. So she encouraged me to create a Spotify playlist that were songs full of songs that we would listen to together to commemorate him. And even one of my friends who's a transformational coach, she also said, do different things to commemorate your relationship with him as well as with the boys. So just me writing music, me singing music, me posting my lives on Facebook and me singing just to encourage somebody, because I love to spread healing, hope, and resilience, the message of healing, hope, and resilience through song. And just I did join a group called Perpetual Hope, where we all shared songs and stuff there. And it's just been a blessing to heal through music, because music for me is like a mood stabilizer. So it's medicine. It's I know it's a cliche saying, but it literally is medicine. Just like laughter is medicine, for me music is medicine, and it's been so healing. So it's a lot of Maverick City music, a lot of Layla Hathaway, and a lot of India Re been on Alexa. So that's been my way of healing and finding joy in the midst of sorrow.
I love it. And just for the listening audience, she is an excellent singer. What I forgot to share with y'all at the very beginning is Kearia and I met because we were part of a group, a leadership group that was virtual, called Rock the World with Words, and just learning how to become more effective speakers. And that's how we met. And you can see through her bubbly, infectious smile and her personality, I gravitated to her right away. And I didn't know this story until she had to give one of her speeches. And when she did one of her speeches and she shared it, I was like, oh my goodness. And so we connected, and I asked her if she would be a guest on my podcast, and here she is. And she's done a great job. And I appreciate you being a part of Conversations with Coach, and I appreciate you putting up with all of the technical difficulty. But I will say this:
no, thank you.
This
thank
second
you.
take was way better than the first take, so it was meant to be. So I really appreciate it. I do a call to action at the end, and now it's time to do that. And so I want to share with the viewing audience that you can get in touch with Kearia if you want to find out more about the different groups that she was a part of or that she has been a part of, and helping her to continue to live her life after loss, also as it relates to the different organizations and people that she's used for her boys, finding out more about her music and how she's using that for therapy. You can reach her through her social media. Instagram and Facebook is how you will connect with her. It's at Kearia.Berry. And she's also on LinkedIn. I know everybody seems to think that LinkedIn is this big professional just for connecting with jobs. You all are missing out. That is not what LinkedIn is all about. Things change. LinkedIn is a huge networking platform now. And if you're not on LinkedIn, you need to get there, because LinkedIn is wonderful for connecting people who are like-minded. That's where it is, where you're going to make your professional connections. It's not just about getting a job anymore, but it is definitely the hub where, if you're needing to connect with people about such things as what we're talking about, LinkedIn is that venue. So that is where you're going to connect with her. And Kearia, the final thoughts, for final thoughts, I always throw a little curveball to my guests. And because I am a mindset and confidence coach, I would like for you to share with the audience, what is the one mindset shift that you want to leave with them for anyone who is living life after loss? What is the one mindset shift that you would like to leave them with?
The mindset shift that I would like to leave them with is, you have the power to participate and set your mind on hope that you can still live and have an abundant life if you just continue to set your mind on hope. I may not have it all together this day, but I am hopeful that tomorrow is going to be a new day. Just setting your mind on hope, just continuing to participate in your own healing process, because it is your own healing process, and seek out the resources that you need that's going to be beneficial to you and that's going to bring hope to your life even when you may not see it in the physical form. So just be encouraged. Get you some podcasts, get you some therapy, get you some Jesus if you believe in him, and if you don't, you might want to try him. So, but yeah, just continue on and just continue just to be continue to set your mind on hope.
Absolutely. I so appreciate you again. I thank you for coming on and sharing your story, sharing how you are continuing to live life after your loss, and for encouraging my listeners and for anyone who is going to listen to this episode after we end tonight. I'm going to say goodbye to my viewers and I'll be right with you, okay?
Thanks so much. Thanks for listening.
You're welcome. Well, I hope you all enjoyed that. I hope you all got so much value out of it. I know that I did. Loss is difficult. We all know that it is. As my guest said, though, that there is life after loss. Death happens in life. But even in the death that happens to us in life, there is a way for us to continue to live life after loss. And if you know of anyone who is experiencing a recent loss, and even if it hasn't been recent in terms of time, but they are still feeling the impact of the loss, please share this episode with them. There are so many resources out there. Have them to get in touch with Kearia. Have them to get in touch with me. I've got plenty of other resources that I can share with them to help them to get on to their road of life after loss, because the person that they are memorializing would want them to do so. It is difficult when you are feeling the guilt that if you continue to move on, somehow you're not honoring them, and that's not what they would want any of us to do. You all know how to get in touch with me. You're following me right now on all of my platforms, but just in case you might have forgotten one of them, you can find me on all of them at Christina Mindset Coach. That's Instagram, that's Facebook, that's LinkedIn, and my YouTube channel. Make sure that you're sharing it with all of your family and friends. And my website is undergoing a rebranding. I know you all have seen me posting some of my new photos and my coloring. All of that's being changed, and I'm so happy and excited to get ready to reveal it to you. My website should be up and ready to go by the end of this month, the beginning of March, and excited about that relaunch. I appreciate you all so much for your support and for you all tuning in. And I hope you all have a great rest of your week. And remember that if you think that you can, or if you think that you can't, you are right. Good night.